This is John Felt, and this is the Mershman Seeds Weekly Weather Briefing, May 25th, 2019. Well, there's sure been a lot going on for yet another week. Tornadoes, severe thunderstorms, inundation, very heavy rainfall, and main stem river flooding. You name it, we've had it over the last couple weeks, including last week. Now, the heaviest rainfall area has shifted a bit. Over the last week, it was in this area right here. Water rescues going on in the suburbs of Kansas City, record flooding going on around Tulsa into the southeast part of Kansas. So very heavy rain in those areas. But if you look elsewhere, you see yellow, and that's over 2 inches of rain over large areas. Now, I've been really focused over the central Corn Belt, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, parts of Nebraska, Iowa, parts of Illinois, Wisconsin, and Minnesota. But you know, the eastern Corn Belt has been getting, generally speaking, acceptable amounts of rain and is in better shape as far as field condition than over the central part of the area. Now, I explained over the last couple weeks, it's pretty clear why we're getting all the active weather week after week. We have this boundary, cooler weather here, warmer weather here, and that clash pushing in right here, that's where it is. Now, a couple weeks ago, it was a little bit more over in this area, and it's pushed back to the west a little bit now, and that's why week to week we're getting a shift in where the heaviest rainfall is, but it is somewhere over the middle part of the nation. And you can see that again in the moisture. I've been showing this the last couple weeks, and it's pushed a little bit further west. Dew points in the 60s and 70s, so moist air here and very dry air here. And again, we see that battle right here along that boundary. I mean, give you an example. Around Goodland, Kansas, it's 43, and you go into the middle part of the state, the dew point's 61. Look at this, 24 and 62. So very strong boundary, moist and warm, dry, and cool. Now, what's happening here is the soil temperature, it's warming up fairly well in the warm sector, but it's hitting that dome of cool air right in here. It's cool in this region, and it's really stalling out further northward and westward progression. Now, here's a new model as far as soil moisture. It gives a little bit more detail, and generally the medium shade of blue, like right here, or the dark shade of blue, that's where soils are the wettest. So we can see that the eastern Corn Belt generally in the lighter shade of blue, not so bad. Even in Illinois, not so bad here, but very wet here. But this is generally the axis of the wettest soils, sort of coming in right in here, and then right in this region right here, and including this region in here. Those are sort of the areas that have really been hit with some of the heaviest rain. It looks like it extends in this region as well. So consequently, the main stem rivers are running unusually high. Areas in purple are where we're significantly above flood stage, and that's where we have inundation of surrounding areas. And I know a lot of fields, very prime cropland is along these river valleys, and that's where the inundation is right now. So pretty widespread. The whole Mississippi is in flood, and we're having a secondary crest coming down, which is close to that last crest, generally in the fourth highest crest or so, but some spots even higher. So what we have here is we have this southwest flow still remaining over the area. And like I said last week, two things this is doing. It's giving us energy, little pockets of energy that come out of this, each one of them producing a chance of rain. The second thing it does, it gives us wind shear. We have our surface winds coming in this direction, our upper winds coming in this direction, and that's why we've had so much wind shear and the threat for tornadoes. So taking a look at the jet stream, I think the main thing you notice here as we go through the next couple weeks is we go from this blue and brown couplet right here, blue-brown, which means cool and warm, dip in the jet stream, bulging north of the jet stream, to, by the end of the period, a little bit more of a straightening of the flow. Now, there's still a southwest component to it, but it's a lot more straighter. So what you see when we look at the temperature is the temperature contrast between cool and warm begins to dissipate, and we just get generally near normal or above normal temperatures. So that's the trend that we're going to. And you would think that with this moderation of that boundary, the extreme precipitation and probably the severe weather threat will gradually decrease. But it does not look to be that the case over the next 5 to 7 days, with some very heavy rain, again over parts of the central Corn Belt, just sort of a maintaining rain. And what I mean by that is what you'd normally expect in spring over the eastern Corn Belt, extending down into this region here. But it looks like, again, northeast Kansas, north Missouri, super saturated. That's not going to be good. Parts of Iowa can take this. Other parts, it's going to be a very delaying type rain over wet fields. Some areas could get 2 to 3 inches of rain, locally more. Most spots an inch or so of rain across Iowa. I wanted to show you the breakdown in the river basins. This is the Missouri on this side. This is the Mississippi on that side. So all this rain here will become adding into the Mississippi here and then coming down. And like I said, a number of these spots are still going to be very high. This will be coming down the Missouri, so both the Missouri and the Mississippi running high. Matter of fact, I looked at some of the readings above St. Louis, and it looks like they're going to get close to what they reached early in May. 6 to 10 day forecast. Well, we still have some signs of that boundary, but then as we get into the 8 to 14, you don't see much cooler temperatures and generally warming up. 6 to 10 day, it still looks like a wet pattern in areas that have been wet. Blue is the highest probability of above normal precipitation. But then as we get to 8 to 14, just sort of a broad area of above normal. I think there's some uncertainty to this 8 to 14 day, what might occur as that jet stream straightens out. Okay, I did want to show you where the severe weather risk is over the next couple days. It's generally in the western part of our area that we monitor here, sort of western Kansas into the Panhandle. But then on day 3, this is Monday, early next week, it pushes back up along a warm front, and it could be more action along that. Excessive rainfall today and tomorrow. Well, look at this area in red. This is where we could get very excessive rainfall, and that's what I'm saying for northeast Kansas, northwest Missouri, smaller parts of southern Iowa, or smaller parts of Illinois. This is where we could get that really soaking rain today and then into tomorrow as well. So right now what we have a lot of flash flood watches or warnings out in this area in green that I just described. That's going to be the biggest threat for ponding of water, inundation, and flooding. But then as we get into the first couple days of June, I wanted to point out here's another outlook area for some potential for flooding in similar areas. So we're looking at Oklahoma, southeast Kansas, parts of Missouri, and surrounding states. Not just this rain, but another one early in the month of June. So fairly complicated forecast, variety of impacts. I do think as we get into June, we might gradually becoming a bit more scattered in our impacts as that jet stream straightens out. But it looks like over the next 5 to 7 days, a lot more heavy rain in areas that have been wet that'll be aggravating current issues with rivers and fields. Hope you all have a nice Memorial Day despite all the weather going on, and I'll be talking with you again next weekend.